Oh, welcome in the Voice from Heaven. Welcome in a series of 3 days to awakening. And yeah, let's see what comes in today in an idea also, maybe starting because we are teaching here a Course in Miracles. And of course, we are always right there in the application of the lesson of the day. And there is on the 107th day of the year an incredible lesson given in the expression that truth will correct all errors in my mind. And this is really the reason why we came here into time space. None of us needs to deceive himself and believe that there would be great accomplishment needed and, and great missions being fought in order to become somebody very special or very extraordinary. No, we are here for learning purposes. And part of this learning purpose is that we do learn and see and admit that there is a way that we have brought with us how to think and perceive things. And of course, also including references of how we have been educated by our own self on the timeline within the dream, and that this education towards uh, uh, limited meanings and seeing things in a limited way is finally acknowledged as being a mistake, and that there is a way to correct this mistake, and that cannot really be done without accessing the power of the mind of God, without accessing, let's say, a source and substance that doesn't really come from this world and isn't really involved in the ongoings of the world, but is really the love within, or creative love, creative light, creative thought, and in another word, simply the truth. And so, unless we invoke the truth and invite the truth as our only and one reference in our mind, we will keep on going, deceiving ourselves with perspectives of things that are still only existing in one's own mind on the level of perception. So, in order to really acknowledge and recognize the truth, we have to go beyond perception, or in the corrective miracle mindedness. That is how the miracle replaces those limitations, is that we are willing to let them go and are willing to go a step further into that cannot be measured, or that is not part of the conception of the human condition, of the human conception in separation, where cause and effect is seen as separate realities and interconnected, but never come together and never being revealed as one and the same, that cause and effect are one. But this is really what we learn once we give allowance for the truth and give ourselves permission to let go what the meaning of perception of anybody or anything is. What better opportunities have we received than those within our relationships? Any relationship given us between humans, or whatever um, self expression within your mind, is given you to learn and to apply that truth is here to correct and replace those errors that you have made and were holding yourself as whatever meaning you have given to the other self as yourself, in that limited way of thinking, and have kept you there, have left you there, and literally have condemned yourself to getting old and die, being subject to a destiny within the world which every body is subjected to. Seemingly, bodies die. Seemingly, bodies have to die. And the truth will, in its correction, reveal to us and show us that we are not a body. It's really that simple. It doesn't need more than that. Everything else, how we experience to be the light of the world, the spirit mind, the one mind beyond the concepts, that's all given and happening by itself, falling in place once we are focused in our transformational experience to let that open up this concept, this embedded concept of the self to be a body. And so it is all about the experience also, how we see that when the meaning is changed about what I have given to my brother, to you, to everyone in the world, in its limitation, holding them all within a reality, a body reality, let's say, and the willingness to have that replaced, to let that go, that is essential. That will make the difference. And of course, we have uncountable opportunities within our transformation in which we, in which we come to know and see that what happens in certain situations of these relationships are really those offerings they offer us to go beyond these limited meanings, how we were holding each other and so ourselves. And of course, those meanings are like set in categories. This is evil, this is good, this is love, this is fear or hate, this is sinful, this is free, and so on and so forth. And as long as we operate in our relationships coming from those categories which show different realities by showing an opposite to it, we haven't arrived at truth. Truth will show us the singularity of one thought, of one experience, of one beingness, let's say. And so, as you can see, if what I'm telling you is, if you are aware and conscious of those gifts given you, that you have here uncountable opportunities in order to change your mind, in order to allow an alignment towards singularity to occur. This is really the application of the workbook of A Course in Miracles. And as we had yesterday, the necessity and admitting the necessity to be still and even to invoke and to pray for that and asking God, let me be still and listen to the truth. Even for that, of course, the human mind needs help and has forgotten how to do that. So it seems to be completely hilarious how we could forget that essential tool, how to listen in a true sense, beyond words, beyond meanings, and how to be still, since these are characteristics which represent our nature. And what is your nature? You cannot truly forget. So it was just replaced with a bunch of illusions, with mounts of illusions and self concepts, only representing something that comes and goes, is subject to death, gets ill and sick and grows old and then has to die. And now we are coming from a resurrecting experience and acknowledge that an immediate acknowledgement of change of mind and allowing the truth to reveal itself is also an instantaneous disappearance of the limited thought forms and an instantaneous disappearance of form association as we see each other in our relationships, of course, allows the mind or opens up for the mind the seeing of the light, the seeing of what the eyes cannot see. It is a seeing by thought, by the power of mind. And as it was already yesterday practiced in lesson 106, then bringing it also to the question, and what does it mean to give and to receive? And then to come to the acknowledgement, what we had also in the previous lessons, that our function here is to listen to the voice of God, to listen to the truth, and then to acknowledge that there's a message that has been downloaded or revealed in our mind, given us, and that our function here in time space within the dream is none less than to be the bringers of that message. That makes you, as the bringer of the message, of course, to the messenger. But the messenger is not necessarily the message itself or needs to understand completely what the message is. So we are trained with A Course in Miracles to actually reasonably understand the message. And so we are messengers who represent also the message. And that is like a nice description of who you are as the savior of the world or as a teacher of God. And of course, in that acknowledgement, that's a sentence also in the lesson from yesterday, that my voice is His, it is God's voice. And to give what I receive. I can only give what I received from Him. You can only give those gifts that you received from God. And that alignment is your way to allow truth correct all errors. First of all, acknowledge that all that shows any limitation is an error and needs correction. Well, just giving you a little excerpt out of this lesson 107, Truth Will Correct All Errors, in my mind. I mean, it's already from the beginning very exciting to follow it and to read it and to see how Jesus directs me towards application and remembrance and practice. And then he says, now you have a hint, not more than just the faintest intimation of the state of mind will rest in when the truth has come, right? So if you allow that to occur, if you try to remember when there was a time, right, as he says before, where peace was not interrupted by error, by illusions, where the singular thought without opposite was perfectly intact. Yeah, that is maybe just an experience of a nanosecond, but in that experience, in that moment, in that instant, the mind recognizes, oh my God, there is nothing separate from me. There is no such thing as a world out there. There are no such things as opposites to the truth. And that is like having this faintest, this hint just the faintest intimation of the state of mind in which you will rest in. And without illusions, there could be no fear. This is just the fact of the matter, right? We are just acknowledging, okay, in order to experience fear or to react out of fear, because there is an identification with a reality that in truth God doesn't know and I could never be, which is that reality in quotes called the body reality, right? And so representing or believing that that is my could be my identity. Of course, the mind, that is when the mind went into fear. That was the moment of separation from the source. And now he says that needs actually illusions. And that illusion is, of course, the idea that there could be possibly another source of myself. And that source would be a self-made source, right? It would not be God. And that hallucination, that imagination made up the entire construct of perception, of a perceptual reality of a world to be seen. Without illusions, there could be no fear, no doubt, no attack. You see, everything would be perfectly in peace and perfectly aligned with the Holy Spirit. When truth has come, here one more, all pain is over. But you have to allow truth to come. You have to invite truth to come. You must decide to only want the truth and nothing else. And when truth has come, all pain is over, all separation is over, all suffering is over, all identification with the body is over. The entire world is over. Hallelujah, amen, isn't it? This is what I'm enchanted to hear and joyfully receive this message from out of time. So all pain is over, for there is no room for transitory thoughts and dead ideas to linger in your mind. Truth occupies your mind completely, liberating you from all beliefs in the ephemeral, all beliefs of these comings and goings. And this is what we prove constantly in our relationships. But this is all ephemeral. One day it's like this, the other day it's like that, right? And so it cannot be a representation of the one love without opposites. So if you acknowledge and see that there is an experience and you see something that is changing in you and is put on the level of perception, let it go altogether. Remember, none of this is true. Then your evidence for what you perceive and how you see peaceful and loving expressions are also only subject of the same undoing process, are not really reality. Go beyond. Go beyond where God is love, is. God is. Love is. God is a fact. That it has really nothing to do how to perceive love or how to perceive yourself or your brother as loving or not loving. Those are just subjects how to practice in forgiveness in order to come to a completely open mind, freed from its own imagined and applied and projected limitations. They have no place because the truth has come and they are nowhere. So all these transitory thoughts and dead ideas are nowhere when truth has come. They cannot be found, for truth is everywhere, forever, now. Now, this is just one paragraph out of this lesson 107. If I'm going to go into this idea of what we share here, 3 days to awakening, we see that here is actually a combination that we are sharing of second day and second day of still being here in time space within the dream, coming into the acknowledgement that there must be another way of looking at this, everything, the entire world, seeing and admitting the limitations in the meanings that have been given up to this moment, that mind starts to change and is willing to change and is acknowledging that there is another way and I could see peace instead of this. I don't want it anymore. I'm willing to accept a corrective device that is given me from out of time, a correction that is revealing to me the truth about myself, because that correction is the undoing principle. And all my ideas are undone if I give it allowance, if I permit it, if I decide that this is what I want to see, this is how I want to experience myself. I'm stepping beyond my own concepts. And of course, we need all the help from out of time. And it is a miracle, absolutely, because we are talking here about the grace and universal corrective principle that comes from the mind of God. It is literally yourself from the other side, on the other side, helping you out so that you don't need to identify yourself anymore with that has bound you here, kept you here in prison, imprisonment, in limitations, in your perception of yourself and the world. And that opens, of course, up to, oh my God, I'm waking up from my dream. Here I'm going here, obviously, beyond my own imaginations of how I could, through searching, find the truth. You cannot find the truth by searching, but you can allow it to reveal it to yourself and then enjoy yourself. Yeah. So if I'm here looking into the continuations of how to share with you some ideas within 3 days to awakening, here is the place where I want to make an emphasis to acknowledge the miracle, right? And to see that the miracle is this correction, and the miracle is this intervention from out of time by my invitation, by my allowance, by my decision. So, of course, we all have looked for an entire solution to the only problem of separation for a long, long, long time. And we have tried many, many methods, Eastern or Western traditions. But in that trying to search and to find a solution, you tried still to share your belief system in your identification as a body. And that's why it didn't work, bodies being separate, minds being locked literally in these bodies, right? So therefore, unable to really join in the light of spirit mind, unable to join except through the acts of physicality, right? And that in the temple, in ritualistic expressions, or in special love-hate relationships. But fortunately, all this involvement of body identification still had never any reality. It was just believed to be real. And so when it was never, because it was never true, we teach it in a way that it was just for a moment real, not just for a moment I held it real in my mind. It was just real to you for an instant, simply because you believed in it and you were holding it as a reality, as a value, a real thing in your mind. And so therefore, you are only just reliving this moment here over and over again. And this is why in this reliving, what obviously had no reality in truth, it just takes an instant, and you will see how it completely opens up and leaves you with a sense of reality. And then it's just, we just laugh, then it's just, oh my God, this is what I believe. Oh my God, what is it I'm seeing right now? Oh, I'm just dreaming. This is just completely illusionary, right? What a relief, isn't it? So once, for myself speaking, once I couldn't stand any longer the painful results of this kind of thinking and keeping myself in limited reality anymore, I actually thought myself able to come to a solution by conceptualizing it, and that would involve discussion, writing about it, and at the end we did uh, argue about what is the truth, what is more true. But first, discussing, writing about the problem, writing about obstacles, and this was a sequence that we have experienced, each and every one of us who has come to this point, which I share with you. Before we were actually willing to personally undergo a process of transformation, of complete transformation, right? It was still like a little bit on distance, and I'm safe just talking about it and writing about it. But you see, we are sharing here our personal direct experience of transformation. This fear has gone. It's replaced by the willingness. Yes, please undo me. This is an unlearning, and I'm absolutely willing to lose my perspective on the conceptual level. So we already mentioned, and we said that this was maintaining a reduced form of communication in one or the other way, and this over and over again. Like a mind structure had been followed in time and was set as something that couldn't really open us the door or guide us out of the problem. And by maintaining the split between that sense of I am, I exist, and here I am, and those I tried to communicate with, and so the problem or the fallacy that occurred by doing that, and the objects I observed, and had always, as I already said, just describing it or writing about it, but then also just talking about it and arguing about what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is untrue. But it was, now we can say it was just an arguing about nothing, literally nothing. Something that was always past, always over and gone, right? Always not here, not completely present. So it didn't serve us other than to keep ourselves in that sense of separation from ourselves, from our brothers, from each and everyone in the world. And so to tell ourselves, okay, we all have to die, and we all have to suffer pain, and we all have to be in separation, right? But of course, all that just could go on for a certain time period. You know, the the time of collapse of that self-made construction was imminent. And that, of course, also showed us that we are here in order to escape from these limitations, how we were holding ourselves in limitation, and really come to a revelatory experience of who am I really in truth, right? So the identity which defends and escapes is is the very thing that actually the meaning of death is. You know, always from the perspective something else or something less or something even more than the truth, right? Trying to divide truth, trying to fragment truth, trying to bring truth into a context in which perception doesn't need to be let go. That was the problem, you know. That was our feeling, being entrapped, and no way of solution, no way out, no escape. Yeah. Well, as a human being, you know, speaking for myself, I was with quite a strong desperation looking for the solution here. And I was looking in all traditions, in all corners of the world, in all possible way in which I had a perspective being offered that I could find. Yeah. But I have to admit that, of course, certain personal experiences increased, but all that was given as the help of where I was looking for was just for me understanding that it isn't there. So at the end of the road, I had to admit I can't find it by searching for it. I can't find it by making effort and almost like trying to force that it would reveal itself. And that was really coming to a 0 point experience, hitting the bottom. It is expressed in the addiction recovery programs, in order to really start listening to a voice within oneself. And that voice was very clearly directing me and was telling me that the only solution to all my problems isn't here, isn't within my conceptual perceptual and perceptual world, isn't within my dream sequence of time-space continuum, but it lies already in my decision to have had enough of this here, right? This is a decision. It's only the decision I have had enough of my dream sequence that allows me to say, okay, whatever it is, but I'm willing to acknowledge that it is not within this dream. It is from outside this dream. And outside also just in the perspective of not within the concept, not contained within the concept. And so that voice has clearly then directed me that it is found in an experience of not being here at all. That would mean I had to let go and leave my perspective as a human seeker or as a good student or as a monk or sadhu, sannyasi, however you want to express it, Eastern or Western traditions, and have to really vertically find it outside this frame of perception. And so giving a yes to that, choosing that, deciding for, okay, that's okay with me. Of course, I have undergone a singular experience. Of course, a revelation has occurred. And if you still pretend not to remember that your own singular experience, that singular experience that we are sharing right this very moment, then allow me now to express my need to teach, to bring this message, to share, to give as I received, to give this message to you, to myself, in the way as it is given us, right? There are no accidents in that. It is perfectly divinely orchestrated. And of course, we do start out in actively teach ourselves this mind training. I'm using here Jesus Christ message, A Course in Miracles. And if it starts out, nothing I see means anything, everything I've given has the meaning, has all the meaning I've given it. I do not understand anything I see. These thoughts do not mean anything. I see only the past. Whatever the idea of the lesson is, or I shared today with you, truth will correct all errors in my mind. It is an acknowledgement that all distance and observation and thought about it, as I expressed it before, that was part of the writing, discussing, arguing expression, comes from the past. It's just past memory. And it is nothing but an attempt to find the solution here in the world, in images, memory images, still connected with the past, defending yourself in limitations that have accompanied you over thousands of years, so that you strongly believe in them. This is the truth, right? Believe in the truth, but it's just a limitation of a belief, right? And of course, not to forget that at the end, we were always just arriving, justifying our being separate, the separation from God. This is what we first come to understand with complete clarity. And this was also the allegiance with the ego thought system. And that allegiance with a thought system that had to be replaced by the Holy Spirit thought system, right, was really this idea of the opposite to God, the advocating the devil, right, being in a pact with him. Now we are calling it the ego, right? But every time that you wanna hold true for yourself a limited thought form, you acknowledge the ego as a reality for yourself. And that means you are in duality. Yeah, so we have denied the truth for a long, long time, isn't it? And it is just this belief in the separation as a very real and very fearful um, entity or uh, fearful identification with oneself that has been made in our own mind that we call the devil or the ego, or how whatever the ego thought would be. It is always determined with separation and to keep it in separation. It will always be determined to acknowledge that the differences between us and what is good for somebody is not good for somebody else. In order to have something must be taken away from somebody else, and so on and so forth. And endless arguing about the truth within one's own mind. And this is really where we became, and hopefully when you're listening maybe for the first time to me, that you see this is an endless game, and I'm tired of finding myself in it and thinking that way, or believing that this would have anything to do with me. And that's why it has such value that Jesus teaches, teaches us in his Course in Miracles that none of this has anything to do with the truth. And this is not who you are. This is just your belief about yourself, believing who you are in reference with past ideas. But who you are is the perfection of God's creation. You are God's creation. He is your creator. You have not created yourself. You have only, under quotes, created your own self identity in that separation. But that was a making up of a complete illusion. And so we are very, very grateful to hear what the truth about ourselves is, and also to hear that what we made up for ourselves is not who we are. And now we bring that through the miracle mindedness, through that corrective device, to an experience. You can literally stand here with me in the light and acknowledge that there is no such thing as an I or a word or whatever your perceptions of yourself on your emotional or mental level is. This is a dream, and we are waking up from this dream right this very moment. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being fearless for that undoing of the fear of separation. Thank you for that determination to decide to make that step further from limitations about yourself and your loved ones and the entire world you see. Because you are willing to no longer be in competition with your source, with God. And that would be the competition with your own self. which is also, of course, expressed in the competition with your neighbor, with anyone in you, giving you the opportunity to acknowledge the truth. So we will leave it with that and just stay in this complete gratefulness that we share with each other, and just let that become like a shining diamond in your own mind. That is the truth, who you are. We cannot really discuss it, argue about it, write about it, express it in words, but we can recognize it. We can experience the truth. We can acknowledge the truth. And we can only do it from an experience of singularity. And that means to let all other ideas go. Welcome to a mind training of A Course in Miracles. Welcome and the portals of heaven, right? Welcome in his mind. Good to see you, my friend. Okay, here's just my last sounds, and here we go. Thank you. Thank you. I love you dearly.